This is the video review of Bajie, or Pigsy, from the Westward by ThinkJoy Toys, a Chinese company. Here are the size comparisons. He's basically a Voyager size figure. Here's a close-up of his head. It's got a robotic kind of look to it. Everything's not completely smooth, which kind of goes with the geometric fat on his body. So his color scheme is really basic. There's almost no paint on this figure at all, except for these tusks, which are kind of rubber, and so's the head is a bit of a rubber. And then there's one really weird choice, is there's this really long skinny neck piece, which looks very delicate. I don't know why they made that. They could have just put the peg closer to the bottom of the neck. So not a great choice there. But overall, pretty streamlined looking figure, not very much kibble. I would say this robot mode is probably like an 8. It's just interesting. The style is very unique, and I really like that. And he also comes with this rake, which has 6 teeth. It's supposed to have 9, but that's what it looks like, and that's his divine weapon. For articulation, his head moves 360, and it's on a ball joint, so you get some of that. And then his elbow is about exactly 90 degrees, 360 around there on this hinge, and then a full outward motion. So great range on that, and bicep swivel. No wrist articulation except for this, which is for transformation. He does have a waist swivel, and he does have outward on the hips. And then a lot of forward motion, but it kind of clashes with this wheel here. And then a good amount of backwards, but it kind of, you have to bring the thigh with it. The thigh is a separate piece for transformation. So he's got a full backward kick, and then the forward kick detaches his torso, so you don't really want to be doing that. And then he's got more than 90 on the knee and ankle pivots. I forgot if I said he had waist articulation or not. One thing that does bug me about this, about the look, which takes a couple points off, is this huge gap right here. And then the hip is on this really spindly kind of joint, which is kind of tiny. And it just really breaks the look. But otherwise, he's looking pretty solid. He feels great in hand. He feels very solid. Definitely as good as any Studio Series figure. And a little bit of heft to him. Okay, so for transformation, you're going to separate the lower and upper body, and that's just pegged in on this. It's not very secure, and a little bit of friction here. And then you're also going to unpeg the head and the pec section. And then there's a double hinge behind the windshield here. So you rock that out, and that's going to free up pretty much this whole section. So this part with the pecs, you're going to push those past these tusks and open up this hood section, and this rubs against the tusks every time. There's just really no way to get these out of the way. They're just kind of in the way. Then you want to fold the head in here. You want to compress the pec sections and then rotate that all into the trunk, the hood of the car. Well, actually, first you have to clear out all these sections, and then this, you just have to flex the plastic out a little bit. This will not cleanly pass through here. And then these are going to become the door sections. So you're going to fold both of these out, and now you have space to fold in the head, and then you can close up the hood. There are some sculpted details on the inside of the body, but they look kind of generic. To get the arms in place, you're going to want these slots on the forearms to end up here in the front, in the cab section of the truck. So you're going to rotate on these hinges first, and then you can just fold down this entire section, and that gets the arms right where you need them. It's pretty simple. Okay, now that you have that in place, you're just going to fold the doors of the cab, And then you just fold up these windows to close it off inside. And then the interior detail, there's not much going on in there, but it does kind of look like seats. So not too bad, but it is just empty in there. And let's see, that gives me an idea. You can pretty much fit a Power Master or Titan Master in there to be driving the vehicle, so that's cool. Okay, so that's the cab section all taken care of. Now for the rear section, this is where things get a lot more complicated. Is you fold up the legs basically like you would expect for an Optimus Prime, but then the entire thigh is actually going to rotate 180 degrees and become completely separate. So you rotate basically the whole leg section up except for the thigh, and that's going to reconnect back into the cab here and here. Okay, and actually I'm going to undo that, and it's easier to get the feet handled and the legs transformed first. So you're just going to rotate, pivot out the feet, and then you fold up the toes, and that'll reveal these wheels here, which is where the heels were. And then you have to separate the calf section out, which basically accordions out like this, and that'll make up the underside of the truck mode, and that'll clip in into this section right here. Okay, so now I'm going to rotate those thighs again, and this calf is going to end up right here in the back of the crotch section. So that basically shortens the thigh. And then it ends up neatly like that. Okay, now that both of those are handled, you can peg this into the back of the cab to help secure it. And then you're going to take the inside of the calves that accordioned out earlier, and that's going to peg into the front of the cab. And then finally this will swivel around and finish off the back of the truck. Okay, and then you take the rake, fold that in half, and that's just going to peg here into the back to clean it up a little bit and make it look less like legs. And there you have the completed truck. One really big missed opportunity is not painting in the windshields and the windows. None of those are visible on the pig mode, so there's no reason those couldn't have been painted, especially because there's so little paint on this figure already. And this is how he scales with Transformers. It's about perfect. So really good looking together. I would have to give this vehicle mode something like a 5. It is pretty ugly, and then some of these details could have definitely been painted in, even though they'd show up on the pig mode. The truck is just really very ugly looking, especially with this color for the cab. It just doesn't look right. It looks like it's made out of pork or Spam. Overall, this figure is pretty fun. It's fairly solid. It does have one QC issue that I think is right here, which is where the calf and the thigh are. It's really, once you got it in truck mode, it's really hard to get it back into pig mode for the legs. I don't know how to, you can't really rotate this thigh again. I think it's just not very well designed because there's this tab here that blocks it from rotating back to where it needs to be, and then you have to kind of flex the plastic and rotate this calf, and I still haven't figured out how you really unlock this without using force. So the best way I've found to do this is to rotate it kind of this way, and then that does make a little bit of stress right there on this joint, and then you can rotate the hip down, or the thigh. So now you can rotate this out, which gives it the clearance so that this isn't blocking it from rotating down. Not a very great engineering design there, which kind of goes hand in hand with these figures. Overall, the transformation is pretty good. I was able to figure out without instructions, but the issue with the thighs, I would say, probably takes it down to like an 8 or a 7 for how much fun it is. He does feel really solid, except for the one issue here on the engineering. Just these hips, these thighs, they're all kind of a mess. So he's about on par with any Studio Series figures, and maybe a 1-point deduction for the sloppiness on the engineering.